Let's see, here's the next one for this. Just kind of looking and knowing that I keep getting darker, more layers, but still have it try to be as gradual, as even as possible with the range that any given color can make, which is part of why I'm having you do this. But this ultramarine blue, what am I going to do about you, ultramarine blue? I added some and trying to sort of get away from just how granulated it was looking. But I got it too dark. So I'm going to try to adjust it before I move forward with this particular shape. And all I'm going to do is just put some water once again. I'm putting water on the whole thing and trying to use a very gentle scrubbing, agitating motion with my brush, just to try to wake up the paint that's there. Usually I'm trying to not wake up the paint, activate the paint from a lower layer, because usually, and probably here, it has a way of kind of dulling out the effect, but I'm going to sort of take that chance here. That's not that much lighter, but hopefully enough to have that value of this color make a little bit more sense. And speaking of that square, I'm gonna this was the one that I'm gonna do a couple things here. I'm gonna since I have my phthalo blue, I'm gonna just do the next layer over the next two columns, and I'm getting close to being to sort of the last layer, which I know is going to get quite dark. Because the phthalos go pretty dark. So this value, I'll probably end up making kind of everything a little darker. The other thing I'm going to do right here whoops, oh well, is I'm going to try to glaze a really watery amount of the phthalo blue. And I'm talking watery. I want to put a layer on here that's really going to not make it at all darker than it is, as little darker as possible, but still sort of try to help cover up the little stain part it's staying there. Just to elaborate a little bit, phthalo blue is a very staining color. Ultramarine blue, not nearly as staining. And I could, if I had a pretty stiff brush, I could reactivate most of that color out of that square and get it back. But let me see what happens here. A little bit darker. But just sort of trying to adjust this shape, glaze this shape to help kind of just make it less obvious that there was that big stain there. It's, as I look at it, it will dry lighter like watercolors do. I think I'm going to leave it like that. And I'll tell you why. I have a feeling I'm going to come back on this kind of everything and make it everything from this and this one eventually darker. So I'm hoping that that is going to be kind of the right value for this second one. But let me do some more on the rest of these. I have my dioxazine violet, which goes nice and dark as well. Almost can't see my pencil line. That will happen often. And if it's a problem, just grab your pencil and reinforce the pencil line. I'm going to pick this up here. The thirsty brush. Let me go to the, how about the cobalt teal? Cobalt teal is not, won't go as dark as these other colors, so it's going to be a little bit different, which is fine. Going to be using the cobalt teal to make some of the grays of the plumeria petals. I'm going to be mixing it with quinacridone pink, and depending on how much of which, it does some cool things, of being a bluish gray or a purplish gray or a reddish gray. We'll get to that later. That seems good for that. Back to the phthalo green. Up at the top here. This seems a little too watery for this fourth swatch. And I say that because I know it will go quite a bit darker than that. But I don't know how much darker, and I think it makes more sense to sort of just keep the sequence somewhat, even though I'm doing different things here and kind of a different thing here, to try to keep the sequence somewhat predictable. Squeezing out the rest of that. There's some pooling color there. I'm just going to let that sit there. It might dry a little darker and be, but that's okay. Okay. More soon.